Alien Earth cannot keep getting away with this. They can't keep getting away with it. Because that's just a crazy cliffhanger. My neighbors can definitely hear me scream. Because they done blue-balled us and edged us again, and now I have to wait a week. I'm just sitting here itching to watch the next episode. No Dre and Snoop. But if you couldn't already tell, I just got done watching episode 4 of Alien Earth, and so much happened. And I'm starting to see dots in the sky, and I'm going to make them connect because I got a brain blood. And I'm going to be giving you my honest, spoiler-filled thoughts of the episode. So if you're not trying to be spoiled, make sure you drop a like, follow, but come back after because I do want to hear your thoughts. Either way, me and you know what we got to do. We got to talk about it. First things first, we pick up with a flashback just like every opening of Alien Earth, except this one is intertwined with this very ominous shot of a cut-off doll's head on an ocean beach. Now, of course, there's a couple of ways you could interpret this, but the way I interpret it is everyone's losing their fucking mind. You could also interpret this as a loss of innocence, especially for the hybrids because they literally lost their childlike hollow bodies. But getting into things, we pick up immediately where the last episode ended off after Wendy, passed out on the floor after having some migraines. Turns out my thought process, and probably a lot of your thought process out there, is true. She can understand the xenomorph language. But what I find more interesting is how Boy Cavalere is starting to try to assert his dominance. After last week's episode, everyone was treating him like a Boy Cavalere. He immediately does that when he tells Kirsch to go do what he does best as a scientist, experiment and observe. Throughout this entire episode, Boy Cavalere is just so condescending to everyone around him besides his right-hand man, who I have a theory on. He doesn't call Joe or Hermit. He just calls him the brother. But it also turns out Wendy can't hear shit, so they start experimenting with her hearing and then she can finally start hearing again. But that's when Wendy gets pushed by Boy Cavalere to try to speak the xenomorph language, which she does by blowing through her fucking mouth. She ain't even have to take Duolingo for that. That's crazy. How do I get in on this? Boy Cavalere loves this, but he snaps everyone away, only leaving his right-hand man here. And I have a weird feeling like he is related to Boy Cavalere. If not, he is Boy Cavalere and he's hybrid body. I don't know. There's just something more to this story that I'm just not fully believing. But he essentially tells his right-hand bald-headed demon man to let the brother know, this is my world, Kimosabi. You work for me. And speaking of Joe/Hermit and Wendy/Marcy, they get a nice little moment to reconcile because she feels bad and wondered if Joe was mad at her because he had to go to a funeral of her even though she was still alive. But they reconcile and of course they're watching Ice Age together. They do this every year. Meanwhile, we pick up with Slightly taking a hike. And again, they're spamming the dissolves. But I fuck with the dissolves. Just like we found out last week's episode, he's still communicating with Morrow. And Morrow, being a fucking 5-head genius, tries to build a little bit of trust, but also blackmail with Slightly. By telling him, I'll tell you my full name if you tell me your full name, that way we can actually trust each other. My name is Kumi Morrow. What's your name? And I believe he tells him his name is Arush Singh. He wants Slightly to return what belongs to him and Yutani, and that's one of the eggs. But Morrow is a smart man. More on that in a second. But what I find most interesting about the conversations between Morrow and Slightly is the fact that Kirsch has been listening in on every single one of the conversations but hasn't said anything yet. And in this scene we actually get him directly mentioning see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, which I mentioned in my recap last week about how I felt like most of these characters were representative of those 3 archetypes. But now it's starting to look like it's applying to everyone in Neverland. He just ominously asks Slightly if he can trust him basically, and Slightly's like, I'll do anything to protect my friends. He's like, good. That's when we pick back up with them observing some more shit, and it's the optic puss, which unfortunately took the sheep. No, first Jurassic Park. What happened to the goat? Well, I guess that was a goat, not a sheep. Fuck it, we ball. Just like the optic puss, it takes control of his sheep, but then it goes into a bipedal stance and just starts staring at everyone observing it. And that's when Kirsch tells one of the kids, Isaac, that it's fucking smart. It's observing them in their own right and trying to figure out a way probably to get the fuck up out of there. It's the most intelligent creature they've come across so far. And of course, this intrigues Boy Cavalere, who was a little jealous that it was staring at Kirsch for the longest time until he hit the glass for it to stare at him. And now we get a nice little subtle foreshadowing with this reflection and him. I'm assuming it's going to go into either Boy Cavalere or Kirsch. But you just know this little optic puss is gonna play a huge factor in the last couple episodes. Cause I got mind control over Depot. He'd be like, shut the fuck up. I'll be quiet, but when he leave, I'll be talking again. Then we pick back up with a very interesting conversation between that bald-headed demon with Joe, aka the brother. But I know they did not just set up this shot like this for no fucking reason. There's more to this guy than meets the fucking eye like the Transformers, I'm telling you. But he basically reiterates what Boy Cavalere would say, and that's the fact that Wendy, yeah, she's our fucking property. We see her as a product. She's an intellectual property that we own. He threatens to quit Prodigy. They threaten him with a bill for replacing his lung, and he's like, shit, not the bills. But also, they would have kicked him off the damn property right then and there if he had quit. And then he also asks a very dumb question, which you probably already knew the answer to, but just wanted to hear it. And that was like when he could take her home. Shit ain't happening, bucko. We then pick up with a conversation between Boy Cavalere and Wendy. And obviously, Boy Cavalere is back to having Wendy as his #1 prospect, Prodigy. And he asks her what it was like to fight the xenomorph. Was it like fighting pirates or was it like fighting Indians from Peter Pan? Then he realizes, you fought the crocodile. I'm loving this Peter Pan allegory because I called it. The fucking xenomorph is a crocodile. But he threatens Wendy with completely removing removing Joe from the island unless she helps him communicate with the xenomorphs. Then she could permanently have Joe stay there with her. So they make a deal and she says pinky promise, like the very innocent child that she really is. But the detail I love about this pinky promise is the way in which he performs his version of a pinky promise. He puts his entire fist on her finger because he doesn't want to be seen as an equal to her. He's on his fucking megalomaniacal fucking narcissistic bullshit. Even in a little detail like this, he wants her to know I'm the boss here, even though this might seem like an equal agreement. And I can't wait to see all of that shit blow up on his face or stick on his face. But remember when I said that Morrow's a genius for learning Slightly's full name? He pulled up at his parents' front door, just in case he wasn't agreeing to stealing one of the eggs. And guess what? He was not agreeing to stealing one of the eggs. So he very subtly threatens his family and tells Slightly, instead of stealing one of the eggs, because I know it's going to be hard and that's why you're hesitant, just take someone where the eggs are, let them hatch inside of them, and then I'll take care of them from there. Or else. Which already presents a very interesting moral conundrum for Slightly. Now that motherfucker got to make a choice. And of course, you know that freaky ass synthetic, he has 69 God. Hirsch was listening into the entire conversation, but the interesting thing again, he doesn't say anything about it, and he just goes and fucking pets one of the eggs. This motherfucker's giving David vibes. But yeah, these two are together. They're married. They're fucking. Arthur and Dame, the two scientists. But he obviously is like, listen, I don't like what boy Cavalere is doing here. Once this shit blows up, you gotta promise me that we stick to a moral, ethical code here. While all that is happening, Nibs pulls up on him and says, I'm pregnant. What? Arthur and Dame are both like, you're a robot. That's not possible. So Dame takes her into her office to have, you know, a conversation. Therapy. Out of all the other children, Nibs was clearly the one that was having the biggest problem with readjusting to her new body and new life. But I also find it interesting that maybe she was mentally unstable or something bad happened to her during the transition. And these smart-ass scientists never thought to think of that? Did y'all do a background check on these kids? Did you vet them? Because we get a brief little glimpse at just how scary these fucking hybrids are when they snap. Because Nibs snaps at Dame for a little bit, and Dame is just sitting there standing there like, sweetheart, do you want some tea? Don't kill me. This whole scene kind of just speaks to the fucked up nature of this experiment in general. That's when we cut to Slightly spying on Joe. Why does everyone want Joe to die, bro? Leave him alone. So it looks like Slightly got his target on who he wants to impregnate with one of them eggs. And again, they're spamming the dissolves. But when you get a shot like this featuring 3 different scenes, it's just mwah. This right here to me is cinema. You got Joe, don't even know what the fuck going on, trying to recover emotionally and physically, Slightly looking over him like, yeah, you my next target. And then you got Wendy technically looking at what's about to happen. But what's actually about to happen is she's about to talk to the fucking xenomorph that pops out of her brother's lung, all while Kirsch watches. And what does she do? She starts talking to the thing, pets it, and just smiles as she goes down and stares at it. It looks like a fucking cobra. It's just there like a snake, like, welcome back, xenomorph queen. Nah, fuck that. Welcome back, David. This is legit her own Alien Covenant moment, and I'm here for it. Because while Ellen Ripley had a connection to the xenomorphs, she ain't ever been able to fucking talk to one, which is just such an interesting concept to bring, by the way, before the events of all the Alien films. Man, this episode might have been a slower burn. They kind of slowed things down. There wasn't really any action at all. It was more set up for the latter half of the season, which I truly appreciated because now we're starting to weave these storylines, these character arcs, and it's about to hug our faces. But either way, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What did you think about that episode? My thoughts, theories, and opinions. Drop a comment down below, and as always, like and follow.